This state-owned hot chocolate shop is one of the nationalisation initiatives of Venezuela's socialist government. A producer as well as trader, Cacao Venezuela employs hundreds of people. As national elections approach, many of its workers are also following national debates closely.
I really like that what we are selling here is from Venezuela. We have our own production. People come a lot looking for our products. We need everything to stay as it is. Here they support us a lot, so for that reason we have to vote.
Surrounded by state-owned enterprises, Plaza Bolivar is a social and political hub. Since campaigning officially began last week for the National Assembly elections, it has become one of the many meeting points for canvassing and showing a united front for the revolutionary process.
The Venezuelan electoral system is considered to be one of the best in the world, and here in Plaza Bolivar, people have the chance to familiarise themselves with the system ahead of the vote. Now, people can come here and go through every single step of voting, from putting their thumbprint to selecting candidates. Now, the people behind me say that people have been pretty much constantly coming to try out the system and that we will be here until December the 1st.
Last month, thousands of Venezuelans took part in a nationwide voting simulation, an exercise designed both to help people feel comfortable in the voting process and to troubleshoot any issues that may arise in the fully automated system. With little over 2 weeks before the vote, the government is hoping for a majority in order to be able to continue with its social programs. By allowing Venezuelans to be familiar with the vote lists and exposing the system to multiple audits, the PSUV is committed to a fair process. But while President Nicolás Maduro has said that he will recognize the election result, the opposition has yet to confirm that they too will respect it. Isabel Thembo, teleSUR, Caracas.
Administrative workers from the public healthcare system of Peru who are on strike had prepared a protest in front of Congress on Tuesday, but their plans were frustrated by the police, who deployed a vehicle with water cannons to disperse the workers. Police also used batons to beat the workers and push them away from the area.
They hit me, they showered me with a water cannon abusively. We were simply on the sidewalk protesting in support of formalizing the health sector, administrative workers and general services, but they have beaten us too much. My hand is swollen, I'm injured, and I am soaked with dirty water.
The main demand of the protesters is to formalize the 15,000 employees who are hired under a system for temporary workers with reduced benefits called CAS.
We hope that the government solves this problem with our CAS colleagues. They've been earning $180, $210, or $240 a month for 14 years. And they're not considered in the formalization process of 2015 and 2016. We ask that the health team includes all administrative, maintenance, general services, nutrition, laundry, admission, and transportation workers.
The healthcare workers are planning to continue protesting and are preparing to renew the strike next Monday, but this time the strike will continue without an scheduled ending date, and they claim they will only stop when their demands are met. Rael Mora, teleSUR, Peru.
A committee of stranded Palestinian travelers in Gaza Strip organized a sit-and protest in front of the Ministry of Civil Affairs in Gaza City, protesting Egypt's closure of Rafah border crossing. The protesters appealed to the Egyptian authorities, the Palestinian Authority, and all the concerned parties to ensure a rapid, proper, and permanent opening of the crossing to ease their suffering. Rafah border crossing was last opened at the beginning of September to allow Gaza pilgrims access to Saudi Arabia to perform Hajj. It was exceptionally opened once more by mid-October for the return of the Palestinians stranded in Egypt.
We arranged this protest in solidarity with those stranded in Gaza. The stranded people in Gaza have been harmed since the blockade was imposed by Israel 7 or 8 years ago. We personally call on President Mahmoud Abbas to intervene for the opening of Rafah crossing. There are 5,000 stranded students, 800 stranded cancer patients who are in bad need for surgeries outside Gaza Strip.
Meanwhile, Egypt has repeatedly accused Hamas of presenting support to the Islamic militants in Sinai, who have been carrying out attacks against its security forces since the ouster of the former Egyptian President Mohammed Morsi in July 2013. Ever since, the Egyptian authorities have occasionally opened the terminal in both directions for an average of 3-day periods, referring its long periods of closure to security reasons. According to Hamas's run Interior Ministry, about 25,000 Palestinians, including students and patients, are stuck in Gaza Strip, waiting for the crossing to open. Nur Harazin, teleSUR TV, Gaza.
During the EPIC conference, which is being held in the Philippines Wednesday and Thursday, US President Barack Obama made a surprising statement in which he praised for the first time the Russian role in Syria. The US President's remarks came hours after the uncovering of the circumstances about the terrorism act that dropped the Russian plane, and after Moscow's announcement about Russia's cooperation with the French in the strike against Daesh terrorists.
The terrorist attack in Europe and the disclosure of the terrorist bombing of the Russian plane have made the masks from countries that support terrorism drop. The terrorists who come from Western countries and who are under the care and support of these great world powers today begun to return with their perverse obscurantism. Thus, the United States and others are forced to coordinate with the Russians to stop this fire.
In the same context, Russian President Vladimir Putin has commissioned the Russian Defense Ministry and the Russian force operating in Syria to coordinate with the French military as allies and to develop a joint plan with Paris to combat terrorism from the air and sea.
Russia is honest and frank, both in its quest to fight against terrorism or in helping the Syrians to end this ongoing 5-year crisis. But the West, incarnated by the US States of America and the French, until this moment, have moved within the framework of colonial thought and the dreams of re-empires.
In spite of the difference that still exists, the military coordination has begun on the ground. Russian President Vladimir Putin has commissioned the crew of the missile cruiser Moscow to establish connect and cooperation with the French aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle, which stationed off the Syrian coast. At the same time, the US Navy announced that the aircraft carrier Harry Truman may remain for a while in the Mediterranean to cooperate with the French Navy. And from here, the question remains about the future role of the alliance that includes the 3 countries, Russia, the United States, and France, and to what extent it may continue. Hazem Abdullah, teleSUR, Syria.
According to leading economists and political analysts, the right-wing Cambiemos coalition, led by its presidential candidate, millionaire businessman Mauricio Macri, will direct its economic policy towards a return to the International Monetary Fund if it prevails in this Sunday's runoff.
Everything they are promising to do goes in that direction. The issue on rates, for instance, where they have said that they will reduce subsidies to lower public spending, and they will reduce state contracting and cut down public employment to also lower spending. They are aligning themselves to the guidelines set by the IMF. They wish to return to being a qualified client or pupil, so the IMF enables them new loans.
The incumbent Front for Victory acknowledges that Argentina will require more funding from abroad, but has said that in order to do that, the country must close the chapter on the vulture funds affair first, but only on terms that favour Argentina's economic well-being, adding that a return to IMF dependence and its conditionings is totally out of the question.
Funding will only come via investment projects and with very specific funding for that. It will not make a return to the international capital market freely, let alone return to the conditionings of the IMF. They have made this very clear.
Daniel Scioli wants to carry out a policy with different value-added taxes. That is to say that he's proposing a modification to this country's taxation structure, which will permit pensioners to get a percentage of their purchases back. This can be done because there is no IMF interference at all.
The thousands of Argentines who have taken to the streets to show Daniel Scioli and the FPV their support have widely said that they are against a return to neoliberal economic policy, which always includes IMF intervention on a sovereign country's finances.
A return to the IMF is like going back to when the youth of this country thought that their brighter future was beyond the international airport. It's like going back to when they thought that a better horizon was beyond our borders, not just Argentina, but beyond our Patria Grande, because as the IMF advances in a region, it advances on it as a whole, which will start with a plan of neoliberal restoration in all of the region. We're seeing how it is wanting to advance in Brazil, so if it advances in Brazil and in Argentina, it will demolish everything that has been achieved, but we won't let that happen.
Specialists say that if Mauricio Macri wins this Sunday's runoff, he and his advisors already have the mechanism required to gain new finance from the IMF in mind and ready to go. They plan to surrender to the vulture funds and pay what New York Judge Thomas Griesa has ordered. Other creditors, known as the Me Too creditors, will want the same treatment, and Argentina would potentially have to pay up approximately $20 billion, putting massive strain on the country's reserves, which would inevitably lead to a new bailout package from the IMF and its interference in Argentina's economic policy. Leo Politico Uti, teleSUR, Buenos Aires.